Hi, I'm Eleanor, and welcome to this week's edition of the Intuition Lab. This week I'm talking about what happens when you're in this sort of spiritual liminal state after you've listened to your intuition, taken action on something, and now you're wondering what's next. So I've called it you listen to your intuition, now what? So you did the thing. Congratulations. It takes a lot of courage sometimes to listen to your intuition, especially when the guidance you get seems a little bizarre, or it's something that gives you a bit of anxiety, like having a difficult conversation that you know you have to have. But you've done the thing, and take time to celebrate it. And if you find the whole thought of celebrating a small thing hard, then just acknowledge it. I'm one of those people who is learning to celebrate things in life. So if you're like me, then just acknowledge that you did the thing. Maybe it's a little pat on your shoulder, even if you have to do it yourself. And don't fall into the, oh, I should have done it sooner, because that just kills your joy and it sort of depletes your energy and it downplays the big step you took in actually following through on listening to your intuition. And sometimes, even though we think we should have done it sooner, there is an element of divine timing in place, that we have our own timing, and then there is the timing that the universe allots us. So just take heart, you did the hard thing. But know that nature abhors an energetic vacuum, and I'm just calling it an energetic vacuum, but know that something is coming to fill the physical, emotional, or just energetic space that you taking this action has created. It may seem like you did a small thing, but in terms of shifting your energy, it can be huge. So just know that if you are downplaying what you did in listening, it may have huge ramifications down the line that you are not yet privy to. Also, know that sometimes you might dip a bit lower temporarily. It's all part of the process. Sometimes we need space to get ready for the next big thing. We have to learn, grow, expand, or be that other person. Sometimes we just have to process that emotions that come with doing something. Like, case in point, I think I mentioned that I recently did a bit of decluttering. I decluttered, I would say, about 75% of the vintage merchandise from my old resale business. And it was hard. It took me a long time, not just the cataloging of everything that I was donating, but just the emotions that sprung up around it, like the fear that I'd made a mistake, or that, I felt a sense of failure because I didn't just sell those things, but I no longer have the desire to do that. So I passed it on to a place where it will be sold and people can have their own magical finds as a result of me taking action. But just know that you might dip lower. And here's where spiritual trust is key. Here's a tip of something you can do to sort of bolster your resolve or just help you after you've made that initial step. Settle in, tune in a calm space, and I'm just breathing in and out right now, but find your energetic five state. I've talked about that and I have a whole podcast episode on it if you want to look it up. But ask your intuition, what's next? What's the next step I ought to take? And listen for the answer. Sometimes the answer is just sit on it, take a break. Sometimes it's go do this other thing that may not seem logical, right? But do it, obviously, because it'll probably nag at you on many levels until you do. But know that if you wonder what's next, you can always ask your intuition, tune in, like do automatic writing. Ask yourself the question before you go to sleep at night and see if you get an answer then or when you wake up or if it comes through in your dreams. You can ask to be shown the next step via an external sign if that's what you need, and then listen for the answer. It comes. Sometimes the answer, like I said, is to take nothing, to take no action. And that can be very frustrating, but that is an answer. I mean, just this is the time to recognize that you are living life in this in between space, like in between transitions, in a state of transition, in a state of flux, and that's fine. We so often feel the need to do away with uncertainty right away. Just be settled. Like, I know what I'm doing from A to B to C to D. And that's not always the way, that's not always the process. Um, you have to learn to love the liminal space and know that it's temporary. It might take longer than you want or think, but again, that's a time to trust in divine timing. And I talk about this in episode 7, Staying the Intuitive Course. So if you'd like a little more information and guidance on that, then just give that a listen. And I apologize if you hear my pets in the distance, they are sort of demanding attention, but here I am. And also, as ever, ask your intuition about timing. Keep checking in to know, is this phase over? Am I meant to stay in this state of flux? How long? I mean, you may not get, oh, it's exactly another 2 days and 3 hours and 48 minutes, but you will get a sense of timing. Sometimes the timing is just like not right now, or soon, or in a few days, or get ready. You may be pointed to take a specific action or do a specific thing that will get you ready and can help advance your timeline. Sometimes things take longer when we are out of alignment. Surprise, surprise, right? Um, okay, so we asked your intuition about timing. We don't always have clear cut milestones on our path, and that can lead to great uncertainty. Now, if your intuitively guided thing is something easy like find a new job, then you know the phase is over when you have found a new job and given notice, or the day you start the new job, or leave a situation. Like that phase is over when you leave, or have a conversation with someone. That phase is over when you speak up, right? But sometimes it's not as simple. For me, I got rid of much of my merchandise, but there is still more stuff to get rid of. So it's sort of like, how soon do I do it? And I know for me, I wouldn't say time is of the essence, maybe it is, but it's important for me to move this stuff out, you know, over the next month or two, or, next month for sure. But there aren't always clear cut things. Sometimes you're guided to, like I've been guided to, and I'm going to do a whole episode on what your intuition is trying to tell you about your health, but I was guided to start lifting weights for a good 2 years before I took any action on it, right? And it was, I mean, it's kind of frustrating, but sorry, I'm just looking away at my pet coming in to visit, and I'm just going to leave him in because he is integral to the process. But sometimes we don't always know. I'm working on getting back into shape. This will take quite a while. Um, I have some milestones, but I don't know exactly how long it'll be. Or sometimes it's if you have to extract yourself from a situation, what are the milestones you can, like, if it's, you have to physically leave a space, find a new place to live, find a new job if you don't have a portable job, do all of these things, but there aren't always clear cut milestones or clear the garden, right? By when? What does clear mean? Does it mean buzz cut everything? Does it mean dig it up and pave it? Like, what does that mean exactly? So, you don't always have clear cut milestones, and that can be frustrating, but that's where you really have to have trust in your intuition. And how do you build that trust? Well, by gauging the results of your intuitive action. And I talk about this in depth in episode 5, Validating Hunches. And it's a data driven approach to your intuition. So here I invite you to ask yourself these questions when you have a calm moment. What were you guided to do? How long did it take you to do it? What was the result once you took action? So that can be very helpful. Like, did it work out the way you thought it would? Did you feel a sense of relief afterwards? Did you feel anxiety? Did you know it was the right thing to do, even though it hurt? Did you try and do something else instead of doing the thing you were guided to do and you knew it was wrong? Um, and also, what happens in the in between state when you know you need to take action and you don't? For me, I developed some health issues because I knew that I needed to start lifting weights and making other changes, and I hemmed and hawed about it, and that had real world ramifications that I've either corrected or am working on correcting. But this is a way to build faith and trust in your intuition, to know that the still small voice you are hearing is valid by collecting data, seeing how it turns out. And most of all, I encourage you to keep going, but don't rush to fill the void, be it energetic or sometimes even spiritual. Like if you leave a spiritual community and you feel lost, because I can relate to this, maybe one day I'll talk about it. But if you leave a faith based community or spiritual community, you can feel bereft and you go from one place to another hoping it'll fill the void, and it doesn't. It's a deep acceptance, like knowing that you made this change and now you have to see what materializes, but keep moving forward and trusting your intuition. Keep showing up for yourself, but also see what options show up or what you're guided to do or a place you might be guided to go. Like, let's say you were guided to majorly declutter, and thankfully you have tons of space left. For some people, it might be an invitation to rush out and buy a piece of furniture, get something to fill the physical space. And I'm using this because it's a good, tangible example. But maybe what you need to do is just sit and let it develop because maybe you were guided to declutter because you'd have to move suddenly, or maybe the roof would leak and you'd have to make a repair right where all that stuff was. Or, maybe in your decluttering, you sold some stuff and you made a bit of money and it came in handy because you had an emergency pop up down the line. You know, don't be in a rush to fill the void, but keep checking in with your intuition. Keep following its guidance. That is a form of moving forward, even if the guidance you get is to stay in place for now. I see it as energetically moving forward as you physically stay in the same space. So that's a lot that I've just spoken about. You've listened to your intuition. Now what? I hope this has been helpful. And I'd love some feedback. How do you manage the in between space where you've taken your guided, intuitive aligned action and now you're just a little unsure? You're living with uncertainty, even as you know something is coming to replace it, something good, something more aligned for you. So, until next week, I am wishing you so much love and guidance and clearly hearing your intuition. If you like what you've heard today, please like and subscribe if you are on YouTube. Please follow and rate if you are listening to this on Apple, Spotify, or another streaming podcast platform. And I also would encourage you to stop by my Instagram because I am going to be at the_intuition_lab. I'm going to be launching my Pathfinders community, which is a free Telegram based community, very soon, where I will have free weekly teachings or guided meditations around a topic, where you can check in, get guidance once a month. I will be doing open reading sessions where you can come and get a little bit of guidance from me. And, there will be surprise pop up meditations, just alerting you to other ways we can work together. But in the meantime, I'm so glad you're here. I am so glad that you are showing up for you by listening to your intuition. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.